Hey there, everybody, and welcome to another installment of Dan's Big Book Study, where we explore the ideas in the Big Book. And here is one that people say all the time. They talk about how we don't control people, places, and things, and that's just ridiculous. It's not in our Big Book. And I know right now you're thinking, oh my gosh, what is he saying? And that, it's good for people to suffer. Suffering is great, according to our program, because it's the very thing that's going to bring people to it. And I wanted to just talk about these installments about how we do have this incredible superpower called influence. And how do we want to influence the world? And really, the challenge rests all over our big book, but particularly so in that fantastic chapter called The Family Afterward. After what? The family after what? And, I think for me, I thought it was after drunkenness. The family after drunkenness. It's actually the family after you get rolling on the steps. You get into AA, work the steps a little bit, and this is the family afterward. So in that chapter, I'm not going to do the whole thing. We do that earlier. You can check the Big Book part of the Big Book Study podcast and hear my thoughts on the family afterward in whole. But today we're going to focus in on one particular thing that is of vital importance. And in the chapter, it opens up on page 122, and it says some stuff and sort of foundational to why Al-Anon came about. But what it says is all members of the family should meet upon the common ground of tolerance, understanding, and love. But you and I know that's not going to happen. All members should. He should on us. Don't shit on me, Bill. But we know it's not going to happen. I know it's not going to happen. It certainly didn't happen in my family. The alcoholic, his wife, his children, his in-laws, his spouse, his significant other, his friends, his relatives, his coworkers. It doesn't say all that stuff. But, the alcoholic, his wife, his children, and his in-laws, each one is likely to have fixed ideas about the family's attitude or the way they're going to approach this sobriety idea towards himself or herself and how they think about their role in that, if they think they even have a role. Each is interested in having his or her wishes respected. Really key ideas, respect, because I don't know about you, but as alcoholics, we have, especially in early sobriety, we have this way of like having a double standard of demanding of other people what we are unwilling to do ourselves, that we meet disrespect with, well, disrespect. I like to call it the dead zone, defiant, energetically angry, avoiding, or defensive. And those things aren't really, but the big book likes to say we're rebellious, by nature, that we have this outstanding rebellious quality. That's an interesting idea, isn't it? It's outstanding. What a fantastic quality. But this suggests that if we can find our way to do our part, the person that we do control, and what we want to do is influence our family by bringing in the idea, the common ground of tolerance, understanding, and love. And this involves a process of deflation. In other words, if you think you're in charge of your family, because you sort of have been, me as an alcoholic tyrant, people thought about me and avoided me, and they really believed they had to be on defense, and they geared up when I came around for some energetic anger, and if they could avoid me, they would. And as soon as we did engage, they became defiant. So they were in the dead zone. I was in the dead zone. And what we really want to do is step out of that and maybe just deflate a little. The alcoholic, his wife, his children, and in-laws, each is likely to have fixed ideas. Each is interested in having his or her wishes respected. We find the more one member, this one maybe, raise your hand if you're listening, that one, the more one member of the family demands that the others concede, fall to the worship. Hey, you can't drink at the party. I just joined AA. Oh, hey, you can't yell at me right now. Anger is the worst thing. And I don't make me get a resentment. Don't make me mad. Don't bring up my anxiety. Don't hit my little bitty triggers. God bless you. Don't do that. Oh my God. No. We find the more one member of the family demands that the others concede to him, the more resentful they become. The more we demand that the world suit us, the more the world wants us out of it. The more that we demand that other people concede to us, the more resentful those people become. This makes for discord and unhappiness. And why? Is it not because each wants to play the lead? Is not each trying to arrange the family show to his liking? Aren't you telling them how they must behave in order for you to get better? That's absurd. And that kind of thing has to not go on. It can't go on. It doesn't matter you've only been sober 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. It doesn't make any difference. If you've been in AA for over a year and that's still going on, it's time for you to quit being a beginner, a newcomer, and start getting into the steps and start being somebody who's skilled in the skills, that is practicing the skills, that is improving in your understanding and ability with the skills called the steps. It's time to go all the way into it. Because cessation of drinking, it goes on to say, is but the first step away from a highly abnormal condition that typically people, knowing that they need love and trust and tolerance and understanding, won't go about things in that particular way. They certainly recognize that being drunk all the time, being obstinate all the time, dishonest a lot of the time is not a supportive family environment. Everybody understands that. Remember, some of these people in the family of my family, the toxic people, those highly toxic people in my family that said things like, Dan, quit drinking. That said, Dan, I love you and I'm tired of watching you hurt yourself. That said, Dan, if you quit drinking, I would be able to do this or that. See, we want to say in sobriety, I'm powerless over people and places and things because we want to be apathetic. We want to wash our hands of our responsibility. We don't understand the word acceptance does not mean apathy and complacency. It means to take on a job, to identify work that needs to be done and go after doing it. That's what it is. Like you accepted a job, like you accepted a plan of some kind that you're going to follow through. The entire family is to some extent ill, it says in here, and let families realize as they start their journey that it will not be fair weather. Each in his turn may be footsore or aggravated or frustrated and may straggle and because of that fall behind. There will be an alluring shortcuts and bypass down which they may wander and lose their way. And the main one is to pretend like everything's fine when it's not. Avoidance. That's the main one. It doesn't matter. Yes, it does. It's just a little tiny pebble and I'm going to throw it in my backpack and it's behind me. Yeah, it is. You're carrying it around. You get enough of them, you're going to have a resentment sack that needs to be dealt with. That's what the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th step process is all about. And you will be benefited greatly by getting good at that. Suppose we tell you some of the obstacles a family will meet. You guys ready for this? Suppose we suggest how they may be avoided. Like, you don't have to go through that. They aren't constructs. We're not just the way we are. It's just the way we are. It's just the way we are. We have to be this way. No, that's not true. Simply not true. The family of an alcoholic longs for the return of happiness and security. Another way to think about that is the family of the alcoholic longs to be able to trust and count on or find that person reliable. It's going to take some time. They remember when the alcoholic father was romantic, thoughtful, and successful. Maybe another way to think about it is honest, reliable, and attentive. Today's life is measured against that of other years, and when it falls short, the family may be unhappy. The next paragraph is interesting because it talks about the family confidence is running high on dad. And part of this is that we like to elevate. My mom was like, hey, on Facebook, hey, Dan joined AA, woo. It wasn't very good. They set this thing on high. They drop you off at the rehab or the sober living or whatever. And somehow it's a magic day, right? That's the sober day. And for very few of us, that turned out to be true. But the vast majority of us, that absolutely did not turn out to be true. And they set an expectation in themselves with our family, other members of our family, with our friends, maybe even with our employers and stuff, that because this happened, there'll be no more drinking. Or even if there isn't any more drinking, because this happened, we'll be restored to the way we envisioned it in the first place. And that is not going to be the case. It finishes that paragraph saying the old buildings will eventually be replaced by finer ones. You got to tear down the neighborhood in order to get the new one in place. The new structures will take years to complete. Father knows he is to blame. The alcoholic me, I knew that I share some of the blame, but I had this word after, yes, I'm this way because. And I want you to really think that the big book approaches it not with a because. That's a trauma-informed care, and all this therapeutic talk puts the because in there. And maybe those things are true, I don't know. In that respect, we might have different stories to tell. In the alcoholic respect, we're choosing to rely on alcohol as the thing that soothes us and provides us comfort, and we must find a suitable replacement. So I might know I'm to blame, and it may take a long time for me to move myself into responsibility and accept the job of recovery so that I can be restored financially and that type of thing. Perhaps he will never have much money again. I think that's possible. Sometimes that happens, but the Wise family will admire him for what he is trying to be. Admiration is a lot different than a pat on the back or an unrealistic expectation. It really comes from the slow building of trust and the comfort and sense of security and the ability to have peace of mind and begin to relax around us. Now and then, the family will be plagued by specters from the past. For the drinking career of almost every alcoholic has been marked by escapades, funny, humiliating, and shameful and tragic. The first impulse will be to bury these skeletons in a dark closet. That's an avoidance, and padlock the door. We don't want to talk about it. It's uncomfortable. I made the mistake one time of talking about some of these things in front of my daughter, and I could just see the disdain in her face. Like, really? Do we have to actually bring that up? But the context of it was, indeed, we do. We're going to get to that. And this is where it gets really important. So you go down a few paragraphs, and we see this idea from Henry Ford, 2 quotes from Henry Ford, which I love. This is one idea from Henry Ford. Henry Ford once made the wise remark to the effect that experience is the thing of supreme value in life. That is to say, that when you are faced with something to do, somebody may tell you about what it's like to do it, and you have a belief that, they're correct because you trust them. And that's a passive experience. That's not a real experience. And then you have the doing of it yourself, and that is a whole package of things. It comes with thoughts and emotions and different ideas, problems get solved, all sorts of stuff. So you get this thing, if you do it enough times, called wisdom. So Henry Ford once made a wise remark to the effect that experience is the thing of supreme value in life. This is true only if one is willing meaning to move the mind towards getting it done, to turn the past to good account. We learn and we share what we learn. We grow by our willingness. Get this head right. Willingness, an agreement I make with myself to face and rectify errors and convert them into assets. Now, how exactly do I do that? The alcoholic's past thus becomes the principal asset of the family, and frequently it's the only one. So if my 12th step says that nothing will ensure me from drinking, will keep me sober, nothing is more important for me to do, not one other thing will work sometimes than intensive work with other alcoholics. The ability for me to not see myself as a sick alcoholic, but an alcoholic who has recovered from a seemingly hopeless state is vital here, because now I'm in the position to show somebody out. I have this thing called experience, and it's the supreme value that I have, that I know the pathway to success out of this mess. It's so important. So this is the paragraph I really wanted to get to today. But it's this painful past may be of infinite value to other families still struggling with their problem. We're going to shift the focus away from, hey, it's all about me and how I see the family, right? That the world around me should do what I want it to do. And if they just do what I tell them, if they just leave me alone, if they quit asking me questions, I would be fine. All this stuff, but I'm powerless over people, places, and things, right? No, you're not. And how many times you said, someone made me mad, someone made me frustrated, someone made me afraid, someone made me? I guess they have the power and you don't. Couldn't they just as well, and this has happened too, made you happy, brought you peace? Someone made me feel loved. Someone made me feel included. Aren't those influences really important? Did they do it because they sounded like you? Were they able to achieve that because you guys had something in common? I was able to relate? Maybe. Says this painful past may be of infinite, without limits, value to other families still struggling with their problem, the person in their lives that's drinking like a fool. We think each family which has been relieved has a debt to pay. The only way they're going to stay relieved owes something to those who have not paid that price that it costs to get sober. And when the occasion requires, when something happens and it's asking for this, each member of it should be only too willing. That's when my mom starts telling somebody about my dark sordid past from her perspective. I don't like that when she did that. She's passed away now. But man, I didn't like it when she'd do that. But she was too willing to bring forward mistakes, no matter how grievous, no matter how bad they went, out of their hiding places, showing others. Remember, this is about other people, not us. 7th step, we're placing ourselves in a position to be of maximum use to God and the fellows about us, showing others who suffer how we were given help, the spiritual solution, the fellowship, the book, the set of directions is the very thing which makes life seem so worthwhile to us now. Cling, grab on, don't let go, hang on tight, grip, cling to the thought. It's just a thought. Cling to this idea because it's an absolute fact that in God's hands, the dark past is the greatest possession you have. That experience of the dark past is the thing of supreme value in life. Only if you're willing to turn that dark, sordid past to good account. Cling to the thought that in God's hands, the dark past is the greatest possession you have, the key to life and happiness for others. Do not buy the idea that you have no control whatsoever because you have a superpower if you've gotten good at the steps called influence. Happiness for others. With it, you can avert death and misery for them. Could there be a more substantial claim? That is a mind-blowing, lofty, high and mighty claim that somehow me, Dan, the alcoholic, the person that brought all sorts of trouble into this world, this person that was unloyal, unfaithful, dishonest, and caused so many problems, can stand in front of somebody in a rather hypocritical way on one hand, and in the other way with absolute authority to say, hey, I can get you out of this. You got to do exactly what I tell you, and you too will find your way out. It's powerful. Cling to the thought that in God's hands, the dark past is the greatest possession you have. If you do this, as if it were a mission from the higher power, that you've been commissioned to go out there and bring people into the fold. If you're on Team AA and you're ready to get out there and represent the big book, the meetings, your sponsor, and everybody who's given up their time and money and effort and attention to getting good at this program so that you and I can find a way to be helpful to the next person, so that Dan can find somebody else who would just give just about anything, right? That's willing to go to any lengths to get this thing. If we can just find our own way of doing that, then we may never have to drink again. Because one day at a time, a commitment to this type of thing, just each day, a commitment to this, God, I give myself to thee to do with me as you will. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I might go from here and do your will always. That 3rd step prayer. Think about it. You can avert death and misery for others. Now, the caveat to that is I want to save everybody. And I meet alcoholics that are still drinking, and I want to shake them, shake the junk out of them, because it's like, gosh, I got it. But if they're not ready, they can't receive it. But when they're ready, am I ready? Have I sufficiently managed myself, my character defects, in the sixth step and said, okay, here are the things like judgment, impatience, thinking, I know the outcome already. Maybe those are character defects I need to wrestle with and be rid of so that I can be ready for that alcoholic who reminds me of me and maybe is really annoying for that matter, that I can be ready for them. Can I go to that seventh step after I recognize, hey, these are the barriers to my success here because I hold the key. You hold the key. We hold the key. We have a duplicate key. The key to life and happiness for others. And with that key, we can avert death and misery for them. And consequently, I never have to experience it again because I do it for me too. I'm just not having to think about me. The family afterward. The family afterward. What powerful words. It's saying the same thing that when you get home to your family, you want to observe them. You want to pause. You want to pray for them, for their well-being, for them to get what they need, even if they're still drinking, even if it's a so-called toxic household. You can be okay there. People have gotten sober in all kinds of situations. And if you're sitting there telling yourself you can't, well, you're going to be correct. That idea that, and certainly true in AA, that if you think you can or can't, you're correct. Our literature says you can. The experience of people in the story says it doesn't matter where you are. People I personally know got sober, homeless, sleeping on patios or in cars, who have really good, successful lives today. Fact is, we're much more alike than we are different. And if one can do it, you can too. If you're out there and you're listening to this and you're like, Dan, this is all like regular stuff. I've been sober for 7,247 years. I certainly don't need to hear any of your nonsense. I sit in meetings and I tell them how it's supposed to be done. Whether they do it or not, I don't care. Well, maybe that's your position. But no matter how many days we may have sober, we leave on the table the risk of relapse when we're not prepared, ready to carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers. Our fifth tradition says it's the primary purpose of every meeting we have, and it's also my primary purpose of identifying myself as an alcoholic in any set of circumstances. The key thing here is that I have done the steps, and that's the context of all of this, that I've done the steps and I've gotten good at the steps, and I'm living them out day to day in my life. So, how are we doing with that? I like leaving you with a question. Here's your question. Are you ready to help someone else find a life of happiness? Are you ready to be the key holder to a life that averts death and misery? Hey, thanks for listening. This all comes from pages 122, 3, and 4 in your AA Big Book. I suggest you go read it. Of course, I interjected a bunch of stuff. It's basically Dan's conjecture. So if you disagree with it, be sure to put that in the comments. I love that the disagreements are far more fun than the agreements. And if we can get in a solid debate, I might really enjoy that too. Anyway, I wish you happy sobriety. And as we trudge that road to happiness, I sure hope I meet you one day. Thanks for listening.